Her voice tore through the dry wind like something breaking. "Further! Please, I can't bear this anymore." At first, Ethan thought he was hearing something unholy echo across the barren land. But when he reached the ridge, his breath caught in his throat. A young woman lay stretched out in the sand, wrists tied behind her back, ankles pulled apart by ropes fixed to wooden stakes. Her skin was scraped raw, her clothes torn and clinging to her with sweat, dirt, and blood. The sun burned above her like it wanted to finish what someone had started. For a second, Ethan just stood there. Anyone hearing her words would have thought of sin, but now, seeing her trembling and gasping for air, he knew it wasn't shame she was choking on. It was survival. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much more intense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Each breath she took sounded like a broken sob fighting to stay alive. The ropes cut deep into her skin, dried blood crusted around the wounds, flies crawling over them without mercy. Her lips were cracked, eyes swollen, barely open. She wasn't begging for pleasure. She was begging for breath. The heat pressed down on her chest like a weight, like the desert itself was trying to bury her alive. A vulture circled slowly in the sky, patient as death. Ethan's jaw clenched. His hands moved before his fear could stop him. He jumped from his horse and dropped to his knees beside her. "You're all right. I got you," he muttered, though he wasn't sure if it was true. His knife cut through the first rope, then the second. The girl flinched, a sharp gasp escaping her cracked mouth. Her body curled in on itself. As soon as she was free, like every muscle had been waiting to collapse. Ethan poured a few drops of water on her lips. She winced, then whispered something that made his stomach go cold. A man, black coat, camera, her voice was barely there. Ethan looked around. No tracks except his own horses. No sound except the wind and her broken breathing. Then something caught the light near a rock. He stepped closer and picked it up. A broken glass lens. Not from a bottle, from a camera. His heart thudded heavy. Someone had been watching. Someone wanted this scene. He lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, too light, and hot with fever. Her head rested against his chest, breath shallow, like every inhale might be her last. He carried her to his horse, then toward his ranch. The desert behind them swallowed their tracks, as if it wanted to keep its secrets buried. By the time they reached his barn, the sky had turned the color of dying embers. Ethan laid her inside, covered her with a blanket, and pressed a damp cloth to her forehead. She stirred but didn't wake. Her skin was burning. He whispered softly, "You're safe now, whoever you are." Outside, the land felt different. Quiet, too quiet, like it knew something unfinished was still out there. He walked out to the porch, staring at the horizon where the last bit of sun sank. His fingers played over the glass shard in his pocket. A camera lens. Why would someone do this? And why leave her where someone could find her? Miles away, a man dressed in a black duster brushed dust off a large wooden camera. His name was Jack. People once called him a bounty hunter. Now they called him something worse. He didn't shoot people anymore. He captured them on glass. The kind of pictures you didn't frame. The kind you paid to bury. In his coat pocket sat a letter sealed in red wax. $5,000 when the banker sees what his daughter became. Jack lit a cigarette, eyes cold as steel. He saw the empty clearing. Ropes cut. Stakes ripped out. His jaw locked. Someone ruined my art. He bent low, brushing his glove over the sand. One boot print. Deep. Square heel. Rancher's boot. A slow grin spread across his face. "Well now, cowboy. Looks like you just stepped into my photograph." Back at the barn, Ethan didn't know yet. But the night was about to change everything. Ethan sat beside her through the night, the barn lantern flickering soft shadows across the wooden walls. The girl stirred every now and then, whispering broken pieces of dreams he couldn't understand. Sweat clung to her skin, her breathing shallow. He kept wetting the cloth on her forehead, even when his hands shook from exhaustion. She looked so small lying there in his old horse blanket, like a hurt animal that didn't know if it was safe yet. "Hey," he said quietly, not sure she could hear him. "You're all right." You're not alone anymore. For a moment, she calmed, like his voice reached whatever pain she was drowning in. He didn't know her name, didn't know where she was from, didn't know who tied her to the dirt like that. But he knew one thing. He couldn't let her go through another second of that hell alone. Outside, the desert wind pushed against the barn doors, humming low like it was whispering secrets. Ethan stood, stepped outside, and let the night air fill his lungs. Everything was still, too still. He took the broken lens from his pocket and turned it in his fingers. The edge caught the lantern light behind him. It flashed once like an eye staring back. Inside the barn, she gasped. He rushed in. Her eyes were open now, wide and unfocused, like she wasn't sure this was real. Her voice came out dry, barely sound. "Where am I?" "My place," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "You're safe here, I promise." Her eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. She tried to sit up but winced, clutching her ribs. Ethan helped her lean against the wooden post behind the bed. She flinched when his hand brushed her arm, and he pulled away immediately. "Sorry," he said softly. "Didn't mean to." "It's fine," she whispered, though her voice trembled. They sat in silence for a while, only the crackle of the lantern filling the space. And she spoke again, very quietly. He said he'd come back. Ethan's stomach twisted. Who? Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to decide if he was real, if he was safe. "The man with the camera." He nodded slowly. "You don't have to talk about it yet." Her voice cracked. "If I don't, you'll die too." That made him go still. She looked at her hands, at the bruises circling her wrists like rings. "He took pictures. Said he'd send them to my father if I didn't do what he said." Her words shook. "He wanted the world to see me like that. Ruined." Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't touch her, didn't move closer. He just said, "He won't touch you again." She lifted her head. Her eyes were raw, hurt, but there was something else. Anger. "You don't even know me." "I don't have to," he said. "Nobody deserves that." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of things they weren't ready to say. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for days. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She stared at the straw on the floor, as if her own name felt foreign to her. "Emily." He nodded once. "I'm Ethan." Her lips moved like she was tasting the name. "Ethan, thank you." He didn't say you're welcome. He just stood, poured a little more water for her, then stepped outside again. His heart was hammering in his chest. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a sheriff or a soldier. He was just a rancher with a quiet life and a broken fence that still needed fixing. But now there was a girl in his barn and a monster out there with a camera and a reason to come back. Far off in the darkness, a match struck. Jack lifted it to his cigarette, the flame lighting the sharp line of his jaw. His wooden camera sat beside him like a coffin. He blew smoke into the night, smirking. "You can hide her, rancher," he murmured. "But I already took the picture." Back at the barn, Ethan didn't know it yet, but the storm was already on its way. Morning light slipped through the cracks of the barn walls, soft and pale. Emily was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, Ethan's old shirt hanging loose on her shoulders. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor. She stared at her bruised wrists like she was trying to understand how they were hers. Ethan walked in quietly, holding a tin cup of warm water and a piece of bread. "You should eat something," he said. She didn't take it. "You should have left me there." He froze for a second. "I don't leave people to die in the dirt." Her voice tightened. "You don't understand. He'll come back. And when he does, he won't just kill me. He'll kill you too." Ethan placed the cup on the small table beside her. "Then let him try." Emily let out a hollow laugh. "You think this is some kind of fight you can win with a gun?" His jaw clenched. "If that's what it takes." She looked at him, then really looked. "You don't get it, do you? He doesn't just hurt people. He ruins them. He wants eyes on it. Proof. Shame you can't wash off." Ethan's voice was low, steady. "Shame belongs to the man who does it, not the one who survives it." Her eyes burned, but no tears fell. That's easy to say when it isn't your face in his pictures. Silence filled the barn. Ethan didn't try to argue. He just pulled a chair and sat across from her. His voice was softer when he spoke again. "You're not alone anymore. And if he comes, I'll be waiting." She shook her head. "Why?" Why risk your life for someone you don't even know? He didn't answer right away. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Because someone should have done it for my sister. But nobody did. Emily stared at him. The anger in her face softened, just a little. What happened to her? Ethan looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. Same kind of men. Different tools. There was a long pause. The weight of unspoken things hung between them. Emily reached for the cup of water with shaking hands. Ethan didn't help her. He just watched, ready if she dropped it, but she didn't. Outside, the sun climbed higher. Somewhere far from the ranch, hooves beat against dry ground. Jack rode slowly, camera strapped behind his saddle, cigarette hanging from his lips. He wasn't rushing. He didn't need to. He believed in patience. Good fear took time to ripen. Back at the ranch, Emily tried to stand. Her knees trembled. Ethan moved to help her, but she raised a hand. Don't. I need to do it myself. He stepped back. She stood, swaying a little, breathing hard. But she didn't fall. Stubborn, Ethan said. Terrified, she corrected. Both can keep you alive, he replied. Their eyes met for a moment that felt longer than it should have. She sat back down, exhausted but proud. What are you going to do when he comes? Ethan checked the rifle leaning against the wall. Aim steady. Breathe. Don't miss. Emily swallowed. And if he doesn't come alone, then I don't miss twice. A breeze pushed through the barn, carrying the distant scent of smoke. Faint, but there. Emily noticed it first. Do you smell that? Ethan's hand went to his gun. He stepped outside. The horizon shimmered with heat, still and peaceful. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too calm. Inside, Emily whispered to herself, Please, not again. Ethan came back in, eyes narrowed. Get some rest while you can. Why? She asked. He glanced toward the open sky. Because once this starts, neither of us will. Far off, Jack Blackwell took another drag of his cigarette and smiled to himself. Ready or not, I'm coming to finish the picture. The day crawled by slow, thick with silence. Emily sat near the barn door, watching dust float in the sunlight like tiny ghosts. Ethan was outside, repairing the fence, but his eyes kept drifting to the horizon. He hammered each nail like he was trying to kill a thought. After a while, she spoke from the doorway. You're pretending everything's normal. He didn't look at her. Helps keep my hands busy. And your mind. That's harder, he said, setting the hammer down. She stepped closer, leaning on the wooden frame to stay steady. You don't even know what he's capable of. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his wrist. I know what you looked like when I found you. That's enough. Emily let the quiet sit before whispering. Do you ever feel like something inside you broke, and you just kept moving anyway? Ethan met her eyes. Every day. She didn't answer, but something softened her face. Trust, maybe, or the beginning of it. He handed her a glass of water. Her fingers brushed his. It was nothing, but not nothing. Later, they sat at his small kitchen table. She ate slowly, like someone learning what hunger felt like again. Ethan watched the window, the horizon glowing orange with sunset. Emily set her fork down. Ethan, if he comes, you don't have to protect me. He looked at her then, calm but sharp. I already decided to. That's not your burden. You didn't choose yours either. Her voice cracked. He'll destroy you. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Maybe, but he won't take you again. She stared at him, searching for fear in his face. There was some, but under it, a steady kind of stubborn. Outside, a horse neighed, sharp, uneasy. Ethan stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. He grabbed his rifle. Emily's breath hitched. Is it him? Ethan moved to the porch, eyes scanning the fading light. Nothing. Just wind brushing through dry grass. Emily stepped beside him, voice trembling. Sometimes the quiet is worse than the screaming. He nodded. That's when you know something's coming. Far from the ranch, Jack Blackwell crouched by a dying campfire. He poured chemicals into a shallow tray, glass plate shining like ice in the darkness. He hummed as the silver darkened. He spoke softly, like to the fire. The first picture was hers. The last one will be his. He stood and mounted his horse, camera swaying behind him. The moon lit the path ahead like a stage. Back at the ranch, Night settled heavy. Ethan sat on the porch, rifle across his lap. Emily stood just inside the door, wrapped in a blanket. She watched him, worried. "You can sleep," he said without turning. "I'll keep watch." She hesitated. "What about you?" "I've gone longer without sleep." She stepped outside and sat beside him, even though the cold bit at her skin. "You don't have to do this alone." He glanced at her, just once. "Neither do you." They sat like that for a long time. No talking, just breathing the same night air. Then Emily spoke quietly. "When he tied me to the ground, I kept hoping someone would hear me. But after a while, I hoped no one would." Ethan's grip on the rifle tightened. "Why?" "Because being found like that felt worse than dying." Ethan turned to her. His voice was low, firm. "He did that. Not you. Don't carry his sin." Her eyes shimmered in the lantern light. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't," he said. "But it's the only way to keep living." Somewhere beyond the hills, a distant sound echoed, like wood snapping, or a camera shutter. Emily's hand clenched the blanket. "Ethan, did you hear that?" He didn't answer. He was already standing, eyes fixed on the darkness. "Inside," he said. "What if it's nothing?" He looked at her, serious. "And what if it's him?" Emily's voice went quiet. "Then don't let me run this time. I'm done being hunted." Ethan nodded once. "Then we make our stand here." And far out in the night, Jack smiled in the dark and whispered to the desert, "Smile for me, rancher." Dawn seeped slowly into the sky, gray and unsure, like even the sun was afraid to rise. Ethan hadn't slept. His rifle rested across his knees, eyes fixed on the fence line where the land dipped into shadow. Emily sat on the porch steps, wrapped in the blanket, her fingers tracing the rim of a tin cup she wasn't drinking from. "You should sleep," he said without looking at her. She shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there." He didn't push her. He only nodded, understanding too well. The wind carried a faint smell of smoke. Not from his chimney. Distant. Foreign. Emily noticed it too. "He's close, isn't he?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Closer than yesterday." She breathed in, steadying herself. "Then teach me." He glanced at her. "Teach you what?" "To shoot. To not be helpless." He stared at her for a moment, trying to decide if she meant it. Then he stood. "All right." They walked behind the barn where the land stretched open and quiet. Ethan placed an old tin can on a fence post. He handed her his revolver, heavy and cold. Her hands trembled. "What if I miss?" "Then you breathe and try again." She took aim, exhaled, and pulled the trigger. The gunshot cracked through the morning. She missed by inches. The recoil jolted her back, tears springing to her eyes, not from pain, but from memory. Ethan stepped closer. Again, her voice was barely a whisper. He said no one would believe me. Said even if I escaped, I'd never escape what he did. Ethan's voice was calm, firm. "He doesn't get to write how your story ends." Emily fired again. This time, the bullet scraped the can's edge. Not perfect, but real. Half a mile away, Jack Blackwell heard the shots and smiled. "Good," he muttered. "She's still got fight. Makes the picture better." Back at the ranch, Ethan reloaded the revolver and placed it gently in Emily's hand. One more. She aimed, held her breath, and fired. The can flew off the post. A small, shaky smile tugged at her lips. "I did it." "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "You did." They walked back to the house. The sun was fully up now, gold spilling across the fields like nothing bad could ever happen in a place this quiet. But both of them knew better. Inside the kitchen, Emily touched the revolver resting on the table. "Ethan, if he comes here, don't try to send me away." "I won't run." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I wasn't planning to." She looked at him, serious. "Promise me." He held her gaze. "I promise." Before either could say another word, a deep voice carried from outside. "Mornin', Ethan." They turned toward the door. Sheriff Amos Reed stood by his horse, dust on his coat, 2 deputies behind him. His eyes scanned the scene, landing briefly on Emily. Ethan stepped out. "Sheriff." "Heard rumors," Reed said slowly. "A girl gone missing. A banker offering reward money. And folks whispering about a man with a camera taking things that shouldn't be taken." Emily's hands gripped the doorway. "Did my father send you?" Reed shook his head. "Your father sent men. I sent them home." Ethan's voice was tight. So why are you here? The sheriff's eyes hardened. Because if Blackwell's heading this way, you won't stand a chance alone. Ethan didn't back down. I'm not alone. The sheriff's gaze shifted to Emily. You trust him? He asked her directly. Emily looked at Ethan, dust on his clothes, dark circles under his eyes, but steady, always steady, and nodded once. With my life. Sheriff Reed sighed. Then we make a plan. Before nightfall. Ethan watched him closely. You think he'll come tonight? The sheriff adjusted his hat. Men like Blackwell don't wait. They hunt when the fear is fresh. Emily felt a chill run through her. Then we'll be ready. Far off, barely visible through the heat shimmer, a lone rider paused on a ridge, watching the ranch below. Jack Blackwell rested his camera across the saddle horn and whispered, almost gently, smile. By late afternoon, the sheriff had laid a map across Ethan's kitchen table, the edges held down by a lantern and a mug of coffee gone cold. This is the layout of your land, Sheriff Reed said, pointing with a calloused finger. Blackwell won't come through the front gate. Men like him don't knock. He'll use the ridge here where the ground dips. Gives him a clean shot, easy hiding place. Ethan leaned over the map, jaw tight. Then we meet him before he gets that close. The sheriff shook his head. No, you wait. He wants you out in the open. That's how he controls the picture. Emily stood quietly to the side, arms folded over her chest. You keep talking about pictures. He's not taking pictures anymore. He's taking people. Sheriff Reed looked at her, nodding slowly. Which is why we're going to end it. Deputy Carter, young and unsure, glanced nervously at Emily. Ma'am, if he shows up, maybe you should stay inside. Emily's voice didn't rise, but it cut clean. I've hidden enough. Ethan looked at her, something like pride in his eyes. As the sun dipped low, Sheriff Reed handed Ethan a second rifle. You take the barn window. Emily stays inside the house. If Blackwell gets past us. He won't, Ethan said. The sheriff studied him for a moment, then nodded. Let's hope you're right. Night came slow and heavy. The horizon burned orange, then sank into blue-black. Coyotes howled somewhere far off. The barn lantern was snuffed out. The only light came from the sliver of moon and the heartbeat glow of dying embers in the fireplace. Emily sat at the small table inside the house, fingers wrapped around the revolver Ethan had given her. Her hands no longer trembled as they had before, but her breath, she kept forgetting to take it. Outside, Ethan stood by the barn window, eyes scanning the dark. Every cricket chirp, every rustle in the grass felt like a warning. The sheriff and his deputies took their positions near the fence line, rifles ready. No one spoke. Minutes passed like hours, until the night's silence cracked. A horse's hoof on dry dirt. Slow, unhurried, deliberate. Emily stood. Her pulse roared in her ears. Ethan saw him first. A lone figure riding through the dust, long coat brushing the ground, camera case tied to the saddle. Jack Blackwell stopped just short of the yard, like he'd stepped onto a stage he'd built himself. His voice was calm. Too calm. Evening. Rancher. Ethan raised his rifle, steady. You're not welcome here. Jack smirked. Didn't come for hospitality. Came for what's mine. Emily stepped onto the porch, gun in hand. I'm not yours. Jack's eyes lit up, like he'd been waiting for that. There she is. My masterpiece. Sheriff Reed's voice rang from the shadows. Blackwell, you're surrounded. Step off that horse and drop the camera. Jack chuckled low. Sheriff, I don't need a gun to kill a man. I just need him to look at the lens. Ethan's voice sharpened. You're not taking another picture. Jack swung off his horse, slow and graceful, like he had all the time in the world. He lifted the camera from its leather case and held it at his hip. Emily's voice broke through the quiet. Why? Why do this to people? Jack glanced at her, and for a second his smile faded. Because the world forgets pain unless someone shows it to them. Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger. That's not art. That's cruelty. Jack's eyes flashed. Cruelty is pretending bad things don't happen. A long beat. No one moved. Then Jack whispered, smile, and lifted the camera. Ethan fired. The shot tore through the silence, would splinter behind Jack as he ducked, rolling to the ground. His camera shattered against the dirt. "Get down," Ethan shouted. Gunfire exploded. Deputy Carter dropped behind a trough. Sheriff Reed fired back. Jack dove for cover behind an old wagon, blood streaking down his arm. Inside the house, Emily's heart pounded so loud she thought it might break through her ribs. She gripped the revolver and whispered to herself, "Not again. Not this time." Outside, dust and gunpowder choked the air. Ethan reloaded, shouting, "Emily, stay inside." Her voice came back, fierce. "I'm done staying inside." Jack, breathing hard, called out through the smoke, laughter twisting in his throat. "You got fight in you, girl. Good. Makes it worth it." Ethan stepped forward, rifle raised. "It ends tonight, Jack." Jack stood slowly from behind the wagon, blood dripping from his elbow, eyes wild. "No," he said, voice ragged. "Tonight, it begins." The yard was thick with smoke and dust. The lantern by the barn door swung slightly from the gunfire, casting broken shadows across the ground. Ethan kept his rifle aimed at Jack, but his breathing was uneven, chest rising and falling with the heat of adrenaline. Jack stood in the open now, hands half raised, blood soaking through the sleeve of his black coat. The shattered remains of his camera lay between them, glass glinting in the dirt like pieces of ice. Emily stepped forward onto the porch, revolver steady in her shaking hand. "Don't move," she said, voice strained but firm. Jack looked at her, not afraid but fascinated. "There you are," he said softly. "Not crying, not begging. Good. That's the face I wanted." Ethan's voice cut through the night. "You're done, Jack." Jack smirked, eyes locked on Emily. "You gonna kill me, rancher?" In front of her, Sheriff Reed moved closer, rifle raised. "Hands where I can see them. Right now." Jack didn't lift his hands higher. His gaze drifted toward the broken camera. "That was my last plate," he murmured. "My last shot at showing them what people really are." Ethan stepped forward. "People aren't yours to break." Jack's voice dropped hollow. "Everyone's already broken. I just don't look away." Emily's jaw tightened. "You tie me to the ground. You left me to die for money. That isn't truth. That's evil." For the first time, Jack's eyes softened, just for a breath. Evil pays better than truth. Sheriff Reed approached, cuffs in hand. "Jack Blackwell, you're under arrest." Jack's hand flashed to his coat. Ethan shouted, "Don't." Too late. Jack drew a pistol from inside his coat and fired. The shot ripped through the air. Sheriff Reed staggered back, clutching his shoulder. "Sheriff!" Deputy Carter shouted, dragging him down behind cover. Ethan fired back on instinct, bullet grazing Jack's side. Jack stumbled but didn't fall. Instead, he turned the gun toward Ethan. Emily screamed, "Ethan!" Jack fired. Ethan jerked to the side, the bullet tearing across his arm. He dropped to one knee, teeth clenched in pain. Emily didn't think. She lifted the revolver with both hands and pulled the trigger. The shot cracked the air. Jack froze. His pistol slipped from his fingers. He looked down his chest, where dark red spread across his shirt. His knees gave way, and he sank to the ground slowly, almost peacefully. Emily stood motionless, arms still extended, smoke curling from the gun. Her breath came in sharp, trembling gasps. She didn't look away. Not this time. Jack lay on his back, eyes on the stars. He coughed, a thin smile on his lips. "Good," he whispered. That's the face I wanted." His gaze drifted to the sky, unfocused. "Perfect frame." The words faded. His chest stopped moving. Emily's hands dropped. The revolver fell to the dirt with a soft thud. She stared at Jack's body, then at her own trembling fingers. I shot him." Ethan stood, breathing hard, blood dripping from his arm. He walked to her slowly and took the gun from the ground. "You saved us," he said. Emily shook her head, tears finally breaking free. "No, I killed him." Ethan's voice was steady. "You ended him. There's a difference." Sheriff Reed leaned against the porch post, hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. He gave the devil a face. "Tonight, you took it away." Emily looked at Jack's body again. No camera, no lens, no power left in him. Just a man. A broken one. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then why does it still hurt?" Ethan's answer was quiet. "Because you're still human." She looked up at him, eyes wet. For the first time since he found her, she let herself cry, not from fear, but from release. The sky above them turned pale with the first hint of morning, and somewhere in the silence, the world felt like it was breathing again. Morning light spread soft across the land, quiet and pale, as if the desert itself was finally exhaling. The gun smoke had drifted away, leaving only silence, tired breathing, and the weight of everything that had happened. Jack's body lay covered with a tarp near the barn. No camera, no more pictures, just a man who had hurt too many and died with no one claiming his name. Sheriff Reed, arm bandaged, mounted his horse slow. "I'll send word to the judge," he said. "This land's seen enough pain. No one needs to come asking questions that don't matter anymore." Ethan nodded. "Thank you." The sheriff tipped his hat to Emily. "You did what you had to. Don't let the world twist that into shame." Then he rode off, his deputies following in silence. The yard felt empty without them. Ethan turned to Emily, who stood barefoot on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes red but clear. She looked at Jack's covered body, then at her hands. Does it ever stop? The shaking inside? Ethan didn't lie. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not ever fully. But it gets quieter if you let it. Emily looked at him, searching for truth in his face. "I don't want to be scared anymore." "You won't be," he said gently. "Not alone." They buried Jack behind the far fence, not out of kindness, but because leaving a body to rot felt like sinking to his level. Emily placed a single stone on the dirt. "This isn't forgiveness," she whispered. "It's just an ending." Later, Ethan found her sitting by the broken fence where the morning sun warmed the dry earth. She hugged her knees to her chest, hair blowing softly in the breeze. He sat beside her, not touching her, just close enough to be there. She spoke after a long silence. "He tried to make me a picture, something people would stare at and whisper about forever. But I don't want to be a picture. I want to be a person again." Ethan looked out at the empty horizon. "Then don't let him be the one who decides who you are." Emily turned to him. "How do I do that?" He took a slow breath. "By choosing what comes next yourself." She nodded, tears drying on her cheeks. "Then I choose this. Staying, fighting, living. Not for what happened to me, but for what still can." Ethan smiled, small, real. "Then you're already winning." Days passed. The land healed the way people do, quietly, slowly. Emily helped mend the fence, feed the horses, fix what was broken. She still woke from nightmares sometimes, but now there was someone sitting beside her when she did. She didn't flinch as much when the wind howled across the field. She didn't whisper apologies to the sky anymore. One evening, as the sun dipped red and gold, she stood on the porch beside Ethan. "Thank you," she said. He shook his head. "You don't owe me that." "I know," she said softly. "That's why it's real." They stood in silence, the sky burning into twilight. Emily looked at her hands, not shaking anymore, and whispered, mostly to herself, "Pain didn't destroy me. It just taught me the cost of being alive." Ethan glanced at her, and the worth. She smiled, tired but free. "Yeah, and the worth." Moral. Sometimes the world tries to break you into something people can stare at, judge, or own. But survival isn't about being untouched. It's about choosing to live anyway. Pain may shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. The real strength is not in never falling. It's in standing back up and saying, "I am more than what was done to me."